I'm back in, guys. We're back with another Overwatch League video. We're doing the recap. This is a bit late, I know. It's been a while. Had some stuff going on. But we're here, we're back, and we're talking about the results of the grand finals. I don't think this is a spoiler because I'm sure you guys, if you care, you have all seen the results. And it was the London Spitfire taking down the Philly Fusion. Was not that close either. It was 6-1. I said, if you remember my video, I predicted that London would win, but I thought it would be very close. It was not that close. Philly, like I said, only able to take one map in 2 sets. A little disappointing, but overall, I thought it was good. They packed the Barclays Center, which was sweet. I mean, we had London back in full force, playing their best, and I didn't think Philly played especially bad. London did an extremely good job of shutting down the star player of the Philadelphia Fusion, Carpe. And then EQO, their other quote-unquote star. As you guys can remember, I've been a little low on EQO all year. I don't think he's as good as a lot of people say he is. So with that in mind, I kind of wasn't that surprised when he wasn't able to do a whole lot. With the amount that they were targeting Carpe, it really came down to they were sending Gesture, their main tank, after him all the time. It really came down to either Sato, their main tank, because Gesture was taking himself out of a lot of fights because he was going after Carpe on the Widowmaker on like long flanks. So that gives Sato an opportunity. He doesn't have a main tank to contest him, but he wasn't able to take advantage of that opportunity. He looked really out of sync with the rest of his team. He dove in when he wasn't supposed to and didn't dive in when he was supposed to. He died a lot, and that's not the number one reason why they lost, but it's up there. It was one of the bigger reasons. And like I said, EQL wasn't able to really pop off. I thought that he always plays his best when Carpe's kind of playing well, and then he can kind of bounce off that. But when it comes to just like carrying, he's not the man. He just doesn't seem to be able to whip out performances like that. And like I said, he's very good at a lot of heroes, but is he insanely good at any of them? I don't think he's a top 5 or a top 10 player in the league. He's definitely upper half, but I mean, you saw what Prophet did. Prophet was so good. Birdring did a very good job of just doing his thing on Widowmaker and the other heroes that he would flex onto. I wouldn't say he outplayed Carpe, because like I said, he had help from Gesture. They were really focusing on Carpe, but he at least made it so that Carpe couldn't pop off. He helped in that cause. And you see what happens to Philly when Carpe kind of gets shut down. The team itself gets shut down, and they can't really make plays. So yeah, Poco and Sato, not on the same page at all. That's the most out of sync I've ever, not ever, but it's the most out of sync I've seen a Winston and a D.Va in a very long time. It was pretty disheartening to watch sometimes. Like, Poco would be off, like, doing whatever, throwing a bomb in a certain place, and Sato would be trying to dive supports by himself, and when you dive supports, and they have good peel back when you're Winston and you don't have your D.Va with you, you're just going to get shredded, you're going to get discorded, and then torn down faster than you can say shish kebab. So, again, I enjoyed the grand finals. I hope you guys did too. Wasn't quite as close as I wanted it to be. I'm just going to talk about looking back on season 1 and maybe doing some little predictions about what we think could happen for season 2 or what we hope will happen for season 2. So, first of all, I think that they should probably, a lot of people want the season shortened. I'd be okay keeping it the way it is, but if they want to shorten it a little bit, I wouldn't be too angry. Like if they took off a couple games per stage, or if they added a couple games per stage, if they dropped it down to just 3 stages instead of 4, like maybe you do 12 games per stage and you have 3 of them, so then you have 36 games total. That's 4 less, but there's only 3 stages, so you don't see meta shifts as often. I know a lot of the pro players were like, well, you don't really see in other pro sports, you don't see the landscape of the sport change that much in such between one season. And I mean, I don't agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, bowling is an example where it changes all the time. Golf to an extent too, what being as you're going on different courses over and over again, and each of them have different conditions. Plus, the weather could play a factor in that as well. So things like that, like NFL rule changes. So I don't know if I agree with that 100%, but I do get what they're saying in that we did get, even though they didn't vary so much, we did have 4 different metas. And then there was even another meta for the playoffs. And I think that maybe they need to look at changing that. Maybe for like the last stage, you keep that same patch. I know they want to keep the patch the same as the current one, but I think if you do that at the expense of having the pros switch around and have to do their 2 weeks of preparation and play a whole new thing going into the playoffs, I don't really think is fair to them. I mean, the teams are in the playoffs because they played the meta the best. They were the best teams for that meta and that patch. So to take that away for the playoffs, I think sucks a little bit. I mean, you could tell that is part of what hurt New York in their eventual loss. I think to a lesser extent it hurt Boston and LA, the Valiant. Actually, honestly, both LA teams probably suffered from it a little bit, but I think that there does need to be little tinkering. I don't think they need to totally revamp the schedule, but I think that something like I said earlier, going to 12-3 instead of 10-4, or just increasing rest time between stages, anything like that, less patches, I think would be a step in the right direction. But honestly, schedule-wise, I didn't think it was too bad. In terms of like burnout and some of those things, I think that that's more on the players and on the teams. They need to be able to manage that more. They are professional athletes after all. This is a legit ass league, and it did very well in terms of like ratings, viewers, everything like that. I think that overall it definitely got a positive response from fans, and I think a lot of the players had a really good time, but there were definitely cases of burnout and other things of the sort. So maybe you need to look at doing that. If you're teams and if you're the league, you got to communicate with the teams and say, hey, what are we going to do, so that we don't have stories like you had Taimu who had a panic attack, you have Effect who kind of mentally derailed, you have other players, Undead, crazy things happened to him after the league started, and others. You want to be able to help them. I know part of it is on that player, but you, as the team, you want to take care of your players and make sure you put them in a position where if they do things the right way, they don't experience that burnout. So that's another thing to keep in mind for them. Another big thing that's coming next season is more teams. So we have Atlanta is officially confirmed, and Paris is also there. I don't think they've completed the paperwork yet. Like, they're not. It hasn't been official, but it's based, as long as nothing crazy happens and nothing like falls through unexpectedly, Paris will be getting a team. And the same thing with I don't even know if I want to pronounce it. I don't want to butcher it. It's a city in China, so China will most likely be getting a second team. That's going to be interesting. The question will be, will they bring in the miraculous youngsters who are widely regarded and have been widely regarded for the last year as the best team in China, the best Chinese Overwatch team? They were able to compete with the likes of Lunatic High and others back in Apex and tournaments like that. So that could be an interesting point of contention. We'll see if they do take a team from China. If they do, if it is that miraculous youngsters. A lot of people were mad when youngsters did not get picked to be the Shanghai Dragons. They brought in some relatively unknown players, except for like Dia. Dia was a popular, well-known guy in China for Overwatch, but a lot of the others were not, and we saw how that turned out. So what will they do? Will they just sign Koreans? Will they sign a combination? Will they get some Western players? Who knows? Who knows what they'll do, and the other two teams as well. And so that's 3 new teams. That would bring a total to 15. And the league, I'm pretty sure they said like they have to, like they're going to. It's just like a matter of who and when. But their plan at least is to add 3 more teams. They want to add 1 more in the North America region. So think of Mexico, US, or Canada, somewhere in there. Yeah, because it's North America, not South America yet, unfortunately. There's one in Europe. They're going to add one more in Europe. Who knows who that could be? Maybe Italy, Germany. Who knows? I'm not really sure which countries are huge on gaming in Europe. I mean, we have London, and then we're going to have Paris. So that's a couple countries accounted for. But it'll be interesting to see who picks up that one. Maybe Russia. I mean, I don't know if because they're technically Europe and Asia, it's half-half. But and then they're adding one more in like Asian Pacific region. So they want to add one more there, whether it be if they add another one somewhere in Korea or China. Well, probably not China. They wouldn't grab two in a row, I don't think. Or maybe any of the countries below that, like Cambodia, Laos, Australia, whoever it ends up being. They want to add one more from each region, which I think would be nice because then we have a little more. There's a little more parity in the league. It's not the proportion of American Western teams to everywhere else will be evened out a little bit. And you might say, oh, it doesn't really matter because even teams like London, well, they're not British, they're all Korean. Or it's a Western team. That's a good example of that. I mean, Florida, they're mostly European with a couple Koreans, so they're kind of. It's funny that London didn't end up being that team, but it doesn't. Obviously, not all the American teams have all American players. Most of them don't. So, still, it is nice to have the representation all around in the other countries. So, it is nice to see that. I know that some London fans have expressed dissatisfaction with this season because, like for their time zone, it was very hard to watch a lot of games. They want to support their Spitfire, and the Spitfire they are making plans to visit London now, but they were, before the season started, they were the last team to visit their country. So some of those fans feel a little bit of a disconnect, but they have to understand that since all the games are being played in LA, then you have to make sacrifices somewhere. And I think that the league did a good job with doing that while also giving fans to the East a chance to watch the games. And you don't have to watch them live. You can just you can have like your notifications for the league or whatever on silent. You can go back and watch the VOD and just like see what happens and not have it spoiled. So I think that they're doing the best they can. Next year, they're not planning on localizing yet. I think they said the year after that they want to do localization, which means stadiums in the other cities where there are teams, and then all the teams would bounce around to the different venues and not just play in LA. But for this season, for season 2, it seems like there will be 18 teams, and they will all be playing in LA. So I think that's a good step, and then they want to expand the teams again after that. We'll see. I'm sure the buying will become even more expensive, and it's not easy to conjure up, what did they say, 30 to 60 million, I believe, the price is to buy a team for this season. So there's a lot of things going on with the league, and I think that overall, if I had to rate Season 1 on a scale of 1 to 10, I mean, I would say at least 8.5, maybe 9 out of 10. I think that overall it was really good. It was really entertaining. They did a lot of things well. I think maybe you have to look at maybe adding a set of casters. The rotation of like 3 teams did pretty well, but I know that some people were dissatisfied with the casting. I think overall they did a pretty good job. But other things like that, making it more accessible for some fans. Think that they could do some things with that in Season 2, maybe switching up the schedule. And of course, we're going to have it's going to be a whole new meta. There will be multiple balance patches, probably another hero before the next season even starts. There's going to be a lot of transactions between the teams. Well, maybe. There might be a lot, there might be a little, there might be like none almost. We shall see. Oh yeah, we did have news today. It's a little sad, but Siegel has decided to hang up professionally playing. He is done being an Overwatch pro, at least for now. If you remember, he did do this like a year and a half ago. He was on NRG. He was in their organization for Overwatch, and they had just kind of revamped their team because they had been disappointing in the past, like they hadn't played up to their potential. So they brought in new guys, but then Siegel said, "No, I'm not playing. I'm gonna stream full time," and he was basically absent from the team. So then the new guys didn't really mesh that well with each other. They didn't bring in that a very well-rounded team. They had a couple of very standout players, such as IDDQD, who was on the San Fran Shock this year. Harblue, who's a very notorious flex tank streamer who is still trying to get into the Overwatch League. And they had Numlocked, who was a backup for the LA Valiant. So he didn't really play. I think he played once all season. But he was still on a team, and that's awesome to have. So anyway, Siegel, he said back then, I'm done. I'm just gonna stream. I don't want to go to tournaments or practice with the team or do any of that. And then obviously he came back and he signed months later. He signed with Team Envious, who became the Dallas Fuel, and he came over with the Dallas Fuel, and he performed really well this season. On his signature hero Genji, he didn't have great performances, especially at the beginning of the year, but he had some very good plays as Junkrat and Pharah. And then obviously he was switched over to Flex Tank, which he performed extremely well on. Such a good diva. And I mean, it was impressive, especially considering that he's been known as a DPS for basically his whole time in Overwatch. I think he was definitely one of the main reasons why they were able to turn their season around and have a good stage 4. So I'm sure they'll miss him a lot in the locker room and out on the stage. Locker room, air quotes. But I mean, he wants to stream full time. That's what he wants to do. He got his taste of Overwatch League, and at least for now, he's stepping away, and I can respect that. I'm glad that at least they had that good stage 4. They were able to make the stage playoffs, and so hopefully he can look back on Overwatch League, have some fond memories, and yeah, I would recommend watching his stream. It's a good stream. He plays a decent variety of heroes. He's pretty, what's the word for it? He's pretty good at explaining stuff as he's playing, and he's pretty decent at like coaching, stuff like that. So as well as being pretty entertaining, and of course he's so good at the game. It's always good to watch somebody that's that good at the video game. So just a little bit of news there. Other than that, there haven't really been like any moves. I believe that on August 1st was the day where teams could start doing things, but there hasn't really been anything yet. There's been some speculation, but no moves yet. Teams can now trade. They can like re-sign players, release players, all that good stuff. So maybe I'll do like a weekly or a couple times a week. I'll do like updates depending on like what has happened, do updates on any transactions, any players that have been signed from like contenders teams, or any players that have been grabbed off like the streets for tryouts, or any trades. Obviously we'll go over those, and other than that, I'll say if there's any news regarding like new teams or just any substantial news about the Overwatch League. If you go on YouTube, there are other channels as well where you can get some news. So when things start heating up again for Overwatch League, then obviously you'll see them popping up. You can tune back in for that. Also, I don't remember the exact date. I can never remember. I think it's in about a week, 2 weeks. Overwatch World Cup is starting soon. Let me know if you guys want to see any content regarding that. I can go over the teams if you're not really familiar with them. I can go over the teams, say who I think is going to be good, who's not, who thinks going to win it all, notable players. But yeah, the World Cup is a lot of fun to watch. We still have World Cup, and there's obviously contenders as well. So if you need your fix of Overwatch, you can go check those out. But other than that, I mean, this is basically it for Overwatch League, except for like the news. But the season 1 is concluded. It's been a great season. Thanks for tuning in, and hear me talk about just all this stuff, the players, blah blah blah, scores. It's been a fun ride, and we'll be back pretty soon. Like I said, depending on what the news is, I will be making videos about it if there is anything significant to report. So please tune in for that. And then yeah, if people want me to do World Cup stuff, even if you don't, I might do it anyway because I think that'll be a lot of fun. That'll be a lot of fun to cover, and you get the sense of national pride when it comes to this. So you can root on the U.S. or Canada, Korea, Australia, wherever you're from. You can rep your team. Obviously, not every team is going to be involved in it. I can do a video talking about which teams are in and kind of the format that it'll be played in, because it is a bit different from the Overwatch League. But other than that, thanks for tuning in. Tune back in for more Overwatch League stuff as it progresses, and other games. There's actually going to be non-Overwatch stuff on the channel soon. So, yeah, I hope you're excited for that. I certainly am. And I'll see you in the next video.